Lumberjack Ravitz on
like
not Esper control. I think we have those deck lists switched there. Ravitz is playing the Orzhov mid-range deck, and Jesse Hampton is playing, I believe, blue-white control, not Esper control.
Right. We have Sin Collectors in Ravitz's deck. That's pretty sweet. Besides that, it looks pretty standard, pretty straightforward. And yeah, on the other side, most of the control players are going the Esper route after the Pro Tour. But Jesse opting for the Street 2 color version.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. The Doomblades have been, pretty celebrated following that Pro Tour. Like Doomblade against Devotion is just where you want to be, etc., etc. And Jesse's running a card that's actually, pretty actively weak against a card like Master of Waves, Celestial Flare.
Yeah.
But I guess you can, every now and then it's a way to actually catch some other creatures that might be a little tougher.
Yes.
From that deck like that.
And Desecration Demon is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, there are cards that Flare is good against.
It's not like a strict downgrade. There are pluses and minuses to be had here.
Absolutely. And the, slightly more consistent mana base, more lands that come into play untapped. You get to play Mutavaults. I don't know. I like blue-white just fine.
Well, both players starting on tap lands, as we are wont to do in the standard format.
Yes.
And Jesse has an island to represent all manner of nastiness on turn 2. Most likely, Cycle Azorius Charm. That's just what that's my. I don't know.
That's your
what
guess.
I see every time on turn 2 from these control decks.
It's either that or nothing.
Why don't we just play some Quickens?
Ooh,
oh wait,
he does.
Jesse has a Quicken.
Yep. We actually saw him quicken out a Supreme Verdict to get an extra turn in an Aetherling on Aetherling race earlier. Pretty awesome.
The turn 2 Soldier of the Pantheon from Josh Ravitz. Not the ideal form of pressure against these control decks. I think he'd much rather have a Precinct Captain, as it pretty much merits a relatively immediate answer, or forces them to Supreme Verdict, which taps them out, lets you deploy another larger threat later in the game.
Yeah.
But the Soldier himself can deal some points.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Definitely worse in Goblin Shortcutter mode versus Elite Vanguard mode, but here we see a Thoughtseize, and Jesse's hand is pretty spicy.
That's a lot of cards that Josh would prefer Jesse not cast. He's going to get to cast at least some of them. We'll have him fan it back out in a moment for the camera if we can relay that to our spotter, but I saw at least Aetherling, Supreme Verdict, Celestial Flare, and I believe 2 Jaces.
Yes.
So, and a 4th land, which is the most relevant probably of those options. I'm sure Josh is wishing he could Thoughtseize that away. Cross his fingers and roll some dice.
There we go. You can see there, he does have an Azorius Charm, a Celestial Flare, a Supreme Verdict, the 4th land in the form of a Basic Plains, Aetherling, and 2 Jaces. So what do you take?
It's a good question. I'm honestly not sure. All of those cards are pretty rough for the home team. This deck is, as mid-range decks go, actually pretty reasonably good at threatening a Jace, I think, between Heroes Downfalls and actual attackers like Mutavault. Gives you some game against Supreme Verdict, protecting Jace.
Yeah.
The Aetherling's not going to be relevant for quite some time. I think I would take the Verdict, which he appears to be going for.
Yeah.
As if I can kill 1 Jace, I can probably kill 2, right?
Yeah, I agree. Taking the redundant Jace doesn't accomplish too much, and of the removal spells, Supreme Verdict is definitely the most threatening.
And now Josh deploys his 2nd Soldier, once the push is clear, a Verdict. Can't actually threaten a lethal attack on Jace next turn if it plays in pluses, as he'll only have 3 damage, but this will probably prevent Jesse from negging.
Yeah. Which, it's often the most you can really hope for, and not let them get free cards off of it.
Plays a Temple before he does anything else, taking a peek see.
Get that information. Looks like he's got a couple of Doomblades in his hand, which is probably his worst card in the matchup.
Looks like he's going to animate, jam the Jace, which will force Jesse to lose it if he neg-2s, and then play another Soldier. So, continuing to just hope Jesse doesn't find another Verdict, but considering he's going to have the option to neg-2 Jace.
Detention Sphere normally would be good against 3 of a kind, but not the case against the protection from multicolored creatures.
Yeah.
Jesse does go down with the Jace.
That's about as big a brick as Joshua could hope for on that Jace activation. Those cards are all pretty mediocre.
Yep. Probably split the lands, right?
I'm curious if he does, if he goes for land versus syncopate. I agree with that split, yep. A lot of people tempted to just, settle in these spots and split it like syncopate land and just be like, that's not that bad. But actually,
rather put him to the test.
Yeah, put him to the test. Make him make a decision. And here we see Jesse does opt for the mana over the interactive card.
Yeah, I think taking 2 lands there is just like a little too easy. but we see Jace come down, plussing again. Still not a lethal attack through the Jace triggers for Ravitz here, so...
One shy. On the upside, that will keep Jesse from neg-2ing, period.
Yes.
So he's got a lethal attack on the Jace next turn if Jesse once again fails to draw a Supreme Verdict, which we know he is drawing at. He doesn't have one. Finds a Divination. That's not going to let him cast a Verdict if he finds one.
It's a good start, though.
At a minimum, he does have an Azorius Charm, which he can use for like some manner of defense, so Josh is going to have to focus his efforts once more all on Jace, basically.
Yes.
Draws that Verdict, but it is too late.
Yep, even with Azorius Charm on the Mutavault, the Jace will still be going down here. If the Mutavault doesn't attack,
His Charm still doesn't save it.
No, his Charm doesn't do anything against the soldiers, but what's Ravitz's turn then?
Yeah, he's probably going to want to actually cast, probably not a creature. He would be wanting anything else, really, because a Verdict is already so good against him. He doesn't want to make it any better. Decides... Oh, wow, he does split in such a way as to allow the Azorius Charm to generate value.
Well, protection from multicolor.
Oh,
guys.
yeah, good call.
Yep,
So
they get to get through.
He has a Celestial Flare, but that is obviously not...
Yeah, you sacrifice the one not going to Jace.
My mistake.
He does deal with both Jaces as predicted from the Thoughtseize.
Finally, we cycle that Azorius Charm.
Yes. We don't need this anymore.
That's what Glenn loves to see.
Draw a card. The best mode.
I think it's relevant to note Josh didn't swing in with his Mutavault either. I assume because he actually didn't want it to get Azorius Charm, since getting Stone Raid is actually pretty bad when he's trying to land it elsewhere.
Yes, agreed. And here we see that Supreme Verdict.
Josh mentally snapping his fingers in disappointment.
Rats! Desecration Demon drawn for the turn, not bad. He's got Demon, Blood Baron, a couple of Doom Blades, and an Elspeth.
Jesse's sitting on a pair of Detention Spheres and a Dissolve, so he's sitting pretty.
Yeah.
He's it's going to take a lot for Josh to pound his way through this. Possibly not going to happen.
Yep. This is the game state that Jesse wants to sculpt.
He can dissolve this Baron, but he actually has Celestial Flare, so as long as Josh isn't jamming with Mutavault as well, he knows he can flare the Baron.
He has Charm for the Mutavault also.
Yeah.
He just pulled that to the front.
It
was awesome that he visually did that so that we could see his thought process.
I don't think he's super interested in that play, but he certainly can make it. And now that he's drawn his own Mutavault, he actually has another way to ensure it by blocking with Mutavault, and then he can flare after damage.
You don't want to have to use the Dissolve on the Blood Baron if you don't have to, if you can kill it with the Flare, because you'd much rather dissolve an Elspeth or Obsidian or...
actual good card.
Yes,
not
Whip of Urbos or,
Josh can Doomblade the Mutavault if it tries to block, and Jesse's probably not going to be eager to present that kind of a threat, so Jesse just has to deal with this Obsidian, and obviously he will. He will dissolve it, just as you predicted.
Yep.
Now if that Blood Baron attacks, it'll get Celestial Flare. A card Josh is probably not used to playing around.
No, but he does know about it from the Thoughtseize, so he's going to stay home until his Mutavault can get in there at the very least.
Josh does indeed do exactly that.
And Sphinx's Revelation in Jesse's hand is a
card.
ticking time bomb.
Yeah, Jesse already on, looks like 9 lands. Yep, 9 lands.
It's just that easy.
That Revelation is a huge threat in and of itself.
Remember those old commercials with the easy button? I don't remember what they were advertising, but I remember the easy button.
And there is the Revelation for 6.
There's the easy button for 6.
If Jesse finds one of his 2 remaining Supreme Verdicts, he can go ahead and mop this board, and he'll be in a totally commanding position. It'll be very, very, very difficult for Josh to bounce back.
Yeah. This is a situation where if Ravitz wants to win, he's really got to buckle down and start the grind.
Yeah, and he's drawn a few of his dead cards in the main deck. We see those Doom Blades just languishing in his hand, not really doing anything.
Yeah. That was definitely unfortunate to draw those so early and just have them rotting. And now Jesse has another Sphinx's Revelation and a hand full of awesome cards. Too many options. Gonna start with the Detention Sphere on the Desecration Demon. And pass the turn. He's gonna have to discard at least one, right?
There goes.
Please come up and find your prize paper so you can collect your prize at the end of the event. X2 or better, please report to the stage.
Just always charm the other discard.
Looks like he goes with the planes instead.
All right. When your opponent has too many cards in hand and is discarding, and one of the cards he discards is a Sphinx's Revelation,
it's cause for concern.
You're probably in trouble.
Josh finds Sin Collector one of his few answers to that specific situation, as that'll force Jesse to either counter that Sin Collector or Sphinx's Revelation in response.
Probably just Rev now, right? Oh, no, he lets it go. All right. That is a good hand.
Yeah. Josh familiarizing himself with Quicken.
Makes things fast.
Succinct.
That's what the rules text of that card is. Makes things fast. I mean, no real choice besides Sphinx's Revelation here. Jesse then probably gonna untap and slam Aetherling. And then we'll play for a couple more turns.
Yeah, we'll see what happens from there, but Aetherling has a habit of boiling things down to a pretty elementary position.
Yes. It is not hard to calculate.
Does take the Sphinx's Revelation. And Josh passes, not willing to give up his Bloodbearing to Celestial Flares, which gives Jesse technically the option to Quicken in the Aetherling, right?
No, it's just sorceries.
It's just sorceries? Oh, yeah. Okay. Just confirming.
That would be sweet.
That would be reasonable.
Savage summoning
is the completion of the cycle, that's correct.
You can do it with the new Seedborn Muse, too.
Yes, Prophet of Krufix.
Yeah.
One of Brad Nelson's favorite cards from the set.
It would be.
It would be, of course. A very powerful limited card as well.
Oh, certainly.
If you haven't had the opportunity to draft Prophet of Krufix, you should definitely give it a spin.
Yeah, it is a delight. You could even bestow it instant speed. Whew.
Jesse playing Aetherling and taking care to leave open a Mutavault as opposed to a billion blue mana.
All right, Josh untapping. And how do you get out of this one?
Looks like he's going to start with Read the Bones.
All right. Formulate a game plan here.
What do the bones have to say? Josh keeping his scry to himself.
Selfish.
He obviously kind of wants a land because that Elspeth is one of the kind of ways he could dig a position here, but against the Aetherling, it's not even going to do that much. So
yeah.
I mean, what are you actually digging for in his position here? I guess an Obstack could theoretically race the Aetherling if you could somehow get through all those flares and the charm you already know about.
That's a pretty steep order.
Steep order, yeah, you're not lying.
All right, a Thoughtseize off the Read the Bones. He did scry both at the top directly into the hand.
Does keep the land. It looks like he just named what he was Thoughtseizing, which in this case was Detention Sphere. So I guess he's on that Elspeth plan?
Yeah, it seems that way. He kept a land and a Thoughtseize, so presumably that's what his plan is.
He's got some life total to work with. He's not just straight up dead to this Aetherling beating him down. But it won't take much longer than usual.
Right.
17 is not especially high.
Alright, unblockability, pump 3 times it looks like.
Josh does have access to some Doomblades to fog Aetherling.
Yeah, the tempo gainers.
Yeah, but Jesse is actually going to go ahead and use Aetherling's Exile after damage, it looks like, to create a blocker and just continue to put Josh in this vice against Celestial Flare.
He's in the cage.
Yeah.
Elspeth does come down, but
its basic function here is just going to be, the premise of his function here is just going to be to actually make some soldiers so those Celestial Flares no longer can kill his sweet creatures, right?
Right.
We're playing Spectral Procession for the full amount.
Yes, except for the fact that, it doesn't even actually work all that well against the Mutavaults, because you can't, use your Doomblades on the Mutavaults and on the Aetherling as a tempo gainer. I mean, if you had infinite mana and infinite Doomblades, this plan might work.
That's a tall order.
Yeah, that's generous of me also.
Yeah. Infinite mana and infinite Doomblades, not accomplishable in standard at the moment. You can get kind of close with some of these Nykthos decks.
Yeah.
You can get kind of close. I think that's actually not far from what Harrison Height is actually playing in this tournament. Am I right? Black Devotion with a bunch of
Infinite Mana
Abrupt Decays and Doom Blades.
Yep. Kill everything.
Jesse debating where to go from here. And he does go to eliminate the Elspeth, so that bought Josh a turn.
Aetherling comes back to play defense. Josh draws for the turn. A land, not too helpful here.
Yeah, looks like he just has those 2 Doom Blades, a Precinct Captain, the land, and another card I can't quite spot.
This deck is not too great in top deck mode, and it's also not too great against an Aetherling.
On a recent episode of Above the Curve, I know when I was describing this deck, I was like, I mean, you're never going to win on turn 4, and you're never going to win after turn 8, right? Like,
yes.
That's where you live.
Yeah, there's a sweet spot.
Exact window in which you're trying to kill people, and it's not large.
No, it is not. Well, that's what happens when you have, 1 drops and 6 drops in the same deck.
Josh goes for the demon.
All right. Fighting on, fighting on.
Has to make his peace that a verdict will just end the game.
Yes.
So no need to play around it, as it will kill him.
Only 2 left, and it looks like Jesse just drew a Sphinx's Revelation, his 4th copy.
Yep.
If that was even needed, which
I don't think that it was. He's
No.
got an Aetherling in 2 swings, and indeed he pumps it to 5 to make it a little more mana efficient on both turns.
Yep.
And the guy flickers out of play.
We had this interaction come up earlier. Against a Blood Baron, you can actually block and blink it out,
Yep.
so to prevent the lifelink. But
Josh, in the end step, after that
Yeah.
Aetherling comes back, uses Doomblade to get himself a turn of no Aetherling on defense.
yeah, the Blood
wise
Baron is
timing.
going to gain at least 4 for him here, which is pretty crucial because it represents a full turn.
Yep. Jesse perhaps should have gotten in an extra one with that Aetherling to play around that particular thing, maybe?
Yeah, probably.
It's a pretty minor thing, but you see, it might actually come back
It
to
might
bite
be
him
the
now.
difference, yeah.
Josh coming in, trying to make a game here.
Well, this would have actually been pretty close to a thing.
Yeah, I think the Revelation might wind up
If
still
it were-
drumming him out. But
Yep.
it's going to put the Mutavaults on, I imagine, the tokens, and leave a blue open for when his Aetherling comes back in. He's going to charm the demon.
Also
Okay.
a good play. Anytime you Azorius charm something that is affected by summoning sickness, it just it just feels gross. It's just too good.
All right, so it looks like Josh is getting in 9 here. Yeah, getting in 9, gaining 4, going to 9. But however, he has left himself all but tapped out, so those Mutavaults can actually complete Aetherling's doing if Josh doesn't have 2 blockers. It looks like he has the Precinct Captain, and then the Doomblade will have to serve as a fog on the Aetherling if it tries to go lethal alongside the
Yep.
Mutavaults. Jesse's not really likely to do that, though. I think it would leave him a little vulnerable.
Yeah, and Jesse, if you know his play, he is not the type to go for such aggressive lines, finish games quickly. He's much more conservative, much rather wait the extra turn and make sure he doesn't die to anything.
It looks like we're discussing whether the Aetherling actually came back into play or something along those lines. I'm not quite sure where we're going. Perhaps, Josh is considering, what if I had something to do with the end step, or Jesse is saying, I don't know. I don't know what's going through this discussion.
Some sort of argument about where they are in the turn cycle, it looks like.
It seemed pretty clear that Jesse was just shortcutting through things.
Yep.
Had not neglected his Aetherling, but was just,
Agreed.
moving the game along at a reasonable pace.
And that is the conclusion they come to.
Yep.
Well,
Draws Supreme
if it
Verdict.
wasn't over already.
Yeah, that's going to make this game significantly easier.
Josh's last turn was actually so good, way better than I thought he was going to be able to muster, and it still wasn't even close to enough.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe it was close.
It was close to close. I'll give you that.
The Aetherling looks like it pumped once and then blinks out of play, and now that Supreme Verdict needs another white mana, but other than that is very good. And yeah, he's rectifying that right now. There we go. And that merits the concession from Josh.
No,
as we said,
what are you
he made
doing?
his peace.
What are you doing? Supreme Verdict just kills your creatures, not your graveyard and your lands. Oh, he's conceding. Okay.
The third verdict does Josh in, as he knew it would,
Yeah.
but not really many options for him. He just had to jam his creatures onto the board and try and get in lethal any way he could. and came startlingly close.
I think the story of that game, besides Revelation is awesome, is how Josh had 2 Doomblades just rotting in his hand the whole early game, where like if those were just lands, he could play his bigger spells faster. If they were just creatures, he had more pressure, but instead they were just these do-nothings, and just taking up space, taking up valuable real estate in his hand.
I think it's important to note that Josh, even knowing that though, I think he found the ideal times to use those Doomblades. You know, like he was saving that last one for the actual last minute that he would ever need it. And then used the other one to get in a ton of damage and force a lot of plays from Jesse. Plays Jesse wasn't even that eager to make. He'd much rather just Revelation for a bunch that turn. But he couldn't flare through all those tokens. He just had to block with some Mutavaults and Charm a Demon. I mean, that's fine, but it was not exciting.
And making sure that he got that 4 life, going up to exactly 1 over an extra Aetherling hit. He played very well, but it was not to be.
On the sideboards, Jesse has access to some interesting cards. I think I might actually like Glare of Heresy here as a solution to those early Precinct Captains that can force you a Supreme Verdict.
It kills Soldier, Precinct Captain early. It kills Elspeth late, and you can quicken it to get an Obsidat.
You can quicken it to get an Obsidat, which is actually pretty adorable. Now I like it even more. But he also has access to Last Breaths, which have the additional upside of being able to catch Mutavaults.
That's good too.
I think he wants some of those. I don't think he wants all. He has 4 Last Breath and 2 Glare of Heresy. I think he wants probably 2 to 3 of that option. So I'm curious to see
I think
which
you
one
go
he'll actually
all the Glares
prioritize
first, and then if you have more spots, you can get in a couple of Last Breaths.
Outside of that, I guess he has Pithing Needle he can bring in to disrupt the Elspeths and also the Mutavaults, and potentially Whip of Erebos, which can be a tricky card to play against. He does not himself have any Elspeths, which is interesting to note. So the Pithing Needle on Elspeth has no downside, really. In fact, in the main deck, Jesse has exactly 1 Aetherling and 2 Mutavaults for kill conditions alongside Jace's Ultimate. Those are his only ways to kill the opponent. So we literally saw everything in play there.
Why kill them when you can just draw more cards?
That's the school Jesse's playing from. Beyond that, the rest of his sideboard doesn't seem that relevant. He does have an additional Aetherling if he wants to bring that in, which I imagine he might just to try and win the game a little faster. He has 2 Yoke Doxes. Those don't seem great. 2 Dispel. Those don't seem great. And 2 Negate. Those seem debatably okay. A lot of Josh's best cards against you are non-creature spells, but Negate's kind of narrow. The deck is basically like a third spells, a third creatures, a third land, so you're cutting yourself off a little bit.
I think that Negate, while reasonable, isn't exactly ideal. Looking at Josh's sideboard, he's got Lifebane Zombies, probably not all that great. 2 more Sin Collectors going up to 4. Those are certainly coming in. A Pithing Needle for Jace, that's probably coming in. Cure and Last Breath, now for this matchup. Blood Baron is not bad. Elspeth is certainly coming in. Devour Flesh, not so much. Doomblade, not so much. Banisher Priest, not so much. And 1 Underworld Connections, which is definitely coming in as well.
That's another card that Jesse might want those Pithing Needles for as well.
Yes, just be sure to name the land and not the Underworld Connections. And
imagine Josh is just cutting out his Doomblades for starters, right? Maybe he may. Do you think he trimmed down on Hero's Downfall or no? I kind of think you might want to go to 3.
I can see going to 3 just because the Pithing Needle's more efficient.
The Desecration Demons are pretty mediocre as well, right?
No, they're actually quite good.
Really?
It's hard to get charmed, but it's so big that it really forces a lot of action. It's like the perfect follow-up to your Precinct Captain curve, where they have to wrath that, and then you follow it up with the Demon, then they're kind of stuck in this place where they're going to be like choked on mana on a key turn, where you can either force through an Obsidat or an Elspeth or something like that. They're definitely not, his best card, but I think that they're still definitely playable, especially if you know that Jesse doesn't have any Elspeths. Which is a card in the format that embarrasses Desecration Demon.
Well, Josh does have an easy time of against Jesse because he is blue-white. He doesn't have to worry about opposing Blood Barons. Which can be very problematic for the white-black deck. I don't know if you guys saw this coming, but it has a little bit of a time against.
You could double block it with Mutavaults.
That's a legal play. I don't know how often it works against any deck with swamps in it, but you can do it. Looks like they're discussing perhaps a few things about the game. A little reflective pension.
Two smart dudes right here in our feature match.
You can tell because they have glasses.
Yes, that's the key.
The big difference between them and the guys in the booth. Besides the Pro Tour and Grand Prix top 8 quantity is the
Right. No, it's the glasses. That's the only reason that they're there and we're here.
Yeah. Tap lands, quick starts from both players. Josh off to the races with a Thoughtseize. Bunch of lands, an Azorius Charm, and a Divination. Well, I know what Jesse's going to do with that Azorius Charm, assuming he gets the option. Looks like he's going to lose Divination to the Thoughtseize rather predictably.
This is Jesse Hampton's dream nut draw. 5 lands, Charm, Divination. Ooh, looks like Ravitz missed the land drop there.
Yep, misses a land drop, doesn't jam with the Mutavault because he's not willing to open it up to the Azorius Charm, and Jesse, in turn, declines to cycle the Azorius Charm, knowing he can continue to keep the Mutavault.
These guys are so smart. He does cycle. Whatever he gets is getting Thoughtseized.
Yeah.
Ooh, and that's
I guess
a
he
good
decided
one.
to take the chance. Man, if I just draw another land, I can blank that Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty reasonable shot,
It's
right?
probably
You're
the
probably
right play.
over a third for sure.
Yeah, it's probably the right play. It's just funny that he drew exactly Aetherling.
Yeah, if he did not bring in his second Aetherling, this game just suddenly got a lot harder to win.
Yeah. A couple more lands for
he
Jesse.
drew Glare of Heresy, which we were discussing whether
All right.
bringing that or Last Breath, which is better. We decided we thought Glare was slightly better. It looks like Jesse at least slightly agrees with us.
Yep. And Ravitz still missing land drops.
Now
Gonna
the
have
Mutavault
to
comes
discard this turn, it looks like.
I like this Mutavault attack. You know, at this point, we can only do so much, really. We got to start actually doing something.
Yeah, if he's holding a charm and not going to use it, that's fine. Essence Scatter, not bad against the Sin Collector that Ravitz is looking to play. He does draw the land.
All right on time. Sin Collector, pretty much ideal, except that it gets snagged by an Essence Scatter. If it had resolved, it could have taken that Glare of Heresy and left Jesse kind of open.
Yeah. Mutavault, kind of like a land, but also kind of like a spell. Ravitz does draw a 4th land and the double black.
This game is going to really put to the test the old does a Screwbeat Flood
Screwbeat Flood, yep.
Because it generally does, but this is a tough spot. Josh has been behind for a lot of turns, and Blue-White is the deck that can most maximize Flood.
I think that adage needs an addendum, which is Screwbeat's Flood unless Flood draws Sphinx's Revelation.
You might be right. Precinct Captain, gonna land here, gonna be quickly dispatched by Glare of Heresy.
We have to assume there it is. And Jesse going on the offensive.
Yeah, I think that may actually have been his only win condition, as we discussed. That Aetherling, a huge loss. So if he doesn't have another one in his deck from the sideboard, he's going to have to get every ounce of damage out of these Mutavaults that he can.
Absolutely. Obsidat.
Josh going for Obsidat, thinks Jesse is open, and he is. This game looks pretty good for Josh now.
I was going to say, the Obsidat is one of the more effective threats from Josh's deck, and to land that, ooh, and there's the Quicken.
But if we drew a Glare of Heresy.
Yeah. Well, some more confusion about what phase we're in
perhaps
here.
a card fell off or something, I don't know. Appear to be checking the floor. Draws another land.
Hey-ya.
Obsidat has the potential to end this game in short order.
Yep. As he is wont to do, and comes back in, drains for 2. Josh draws. Hand full of spells.
Jesse on 14. 2-turn clock if the Mutavault swings on the next turn, right?
Yeah. Or anything else happens.
And
like a Blood Baron of Scopa, for example.
So now Jesse needs 2 cards off the top of the deck to avoid being pretty dead. And doesn't look like he has them. He's going to have to chump with his Mutavault just to survive.
Yeah.
He has a Celestial Flare. So he's got a little something, but Josh is probably going to have the Mutavault running back up against that particular spell. Does he have a thought? Oh, he has a Thoughtseize? Never mind.
Wow.
Magic's a tough game.
Wow.
It's so difficult.
Well, when Ravitz...
Jesse reveals and now will die.
This is where we say Screwbeat's... Wow. This is why we say Screwbeat's Flood. Both players are going to sort of draw out of it eventually, right? But when they do, the flooding player is going to have 1 spell per turn, whereas the screw player is going to have his handful of spells that he hasn't been able to play.
He's going to have the best of multiple spells each turn.
Yes.
Whereas the flood player is reduced to just playing whichever one he draws. If it's good, great. If it's bad, not so much.
Right.
So a wealth of Sphinx's revelations delivered Jesse the first game, and a lack of them.
A dearth.
Take it away in the second.
A dearth of Sphinx's
A dearth
revelations.
indeed.
That was a
7-minute game.
That was a quick game for this matchup.
Yeah. Both players quickly sideboarding, going to have plenty of time going into game 3.
So how much do you think play draw matters?
Honestly, in this matchup, it doesn't feel like it matters a ton. Being able to slide Precinct Captain underneath Essence Scatter is nice. I think that's like one of the larger gains you get. But once Jesse has access to post-board answers like Last Breath and Glare of Heresy, it becomes less relevant.
I agree. I think that it's actually possible that the extra card matters more for Jesse than the turn of playing first.
Yeah, considering
because-
Josh's Sin Collectors and Thoughtseize, I don't
Exactly.
think you're wrong. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
I
certainly
think
an interesting idea.
we
I wonder.
actually
We should ask
saw-
Wafotapa. He would know, right?
He would.
Against
man.
Chapin and Rietzel, were you choosing to play or draw after you saw this deck?
One of my favorite play draw stories involved with Wafotapa is he's playing, another control deck at some GP. He plays against some guy playing another control deck. He chooses to play first, beats him. Next round he plays Chapin. And against Chapin, he chooses to draw first. Chapin goes, "What? I know you played my friend playing the same deck, and you chose to play against him." And he goes, "Yeah, against him I choose to play. Against you, I choose to draw."
Perhaps an indicative of how Wafa plays particularly against Chapin, or perhaps how Chapin particularly plays. Like Wafa knows, he wants to make the game go much longer, generate value. Generally, I might choose to play, but against someone I know is going to go in this exact way.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He's a smart dude.
He is.
Wafa for Hall of Fame.
Cryptic Quiet
2014.
Genius. He has certainly made a strong case for himself
Yep.
with this PT top 8.
He was one of those bordering guys,
Yeah, he finished-
and then nailed the top 8. It's like,
He finished 10th in the voting last year. In fact, this Pro Tour Theros top 8 was huge, I think, for Hall of Fame balloting. As we saw, Makahito Mahara finished 5th. He made a top 8.
And Rietzel.
It's a runner top 8 for Mahara as well. He top 8 at Dragon's Maze as well.
that is true.
And then Rietzel, who finished 20th in the balloting, makes his top 8.
Yep.
And Wafatop, as we already discussed, makes, I believe, his 4th top 8, right?
5th.
This is his 5th? I know it was Mahara's 5th. I thought it was Wafatop's 4th, but I could be wrong.
I think it's 5th.
Okay. Certainly makes a much stronger case regardless.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we see all 3 of those finishing in or near the top of the balloting next year. In fact, I go so far as to say I think Mahara and Wafotop are like leading candidates. at
Near
this
hard
point.
loss.
Yeah. They're up there.
There were 2 of the people that were at the top of the discussion of, all this giant pool of players that has about 3, maybe 4 top 8s, but, they're all splitting the votes amongst themselves. And then anybody who has that 5th top 8 is, like, really getting a huge boost.
Yeah. Just going to the line, making an easy air ball there. Just swish.
So now they just nailed it, and now they're, differentiating themselves from that pack that's splitting up all those votes.
Quite a top 8. Josh Ravitz mulliganing to 6, it appears. And Jesse has the play, leads Azorius Guildgate, and Josh fires back with Plain Soldier of the Pantheon. Get your beat on.
Gasp. Soldier of the Pantheon, pretty awesome card in general. It's, I don't want to say the backbone, but it's an important part of a lot of different decks, and it was a key sideboard card in a lot of the control decks at the Pro Tour last weekend.
This is a tough,
for example.
This is a tough Thoughtseize for Josh Ravitz. He has a lot of interesting options. Jesse only has a 3rd land, so there's a Verdict, an Aetherling, a Divination, a Flare, and a Charm. He can take the Divination, which will, put a little stress on Jesse's lands probably.
Is that Flare or Last Breath?
Oh, sorry, you're right. It is Last Breath. Good call. But he does have the Charm to cycle for an extra card. I agree with taking the Divination, but Jesse could still very easily peel enough lands to get out of here, and he has the Charm as a free roll.
Yep, and he started right there with the 4th land. There's our, Last Breath.
The new art for Last Breath, significantly less ghosty, significantly more birdie. We've got a Harpy being dissipated right there. And as you see, it's one of the better answers to Soldier of the Pantheon. Jesse,
I need a minute. That was too good.
We've got a strange fade going on here. We'll get that correct. There you go. Soldier of the Pantheon jamming in for 2. And another Thoughtseize after damage. Jesse chooses to fan, does not cycle the Azori's Charm in response. And Josh takes the Aetherling. Alrighty.
No fear. Or maybe more fear of the Aetherling.
That kind of indicates Josh is not expecting to win a quick game here, which, based on Jesse's hand, I think that's a safe assumption. He has an answer to the Soldier. He has Verdict for the next threat. It's going to go for a ways.
Yep. And if it's going to go for a ways, then you got to get rid of the Aetherling while you can.
And as we already discussed, Jesse does only have one Aetherling in his main deck without another one being sideboarded in. That could be his only Aetherling, and in a game that, could legitimately come down to time, they have a lot of time to play. Removing an Aetherling is a huge deal. When you think you're the only person who can actually win in 15 minutes, you're basically kind of, running a free roll on a troll.
Yes. So, cycling more, Jesse trying to get set up here. Detention Sphere, Essence Scatter, Supreme Verdict, Last Breath. Not a bad hand.
Yeah, he's been holding back on that Last Breath for quite some time. It might be time to pull the trigger, though, now with Essence Scatter up to hit the next thing.
Yep, definitely possible, and that is what he goes for.
Last Breath, Exile, Soldier of the Pantheon, Josh jamming Blood Baron. It'll run headlong into an Essence Scatter. Or will it? Jesse decides to take a peel off the top. If he finds a land, he can go Verdict, Essence Scatter the next threat, which is probably his plan.
Save the Scatter for Obsidat. You can Wrath the Blood Baron, you can't Wrath the Obsidat.
That makes sense. I think he's probably going to go ahead and let this Blood Baron whack him too. He'd much rather Rev for 2. The problem is he can't do it on his turn to get the free land drop, so we'll have to actually pass.
Yep. Meanwhile, Josh, little land heavy, he does have a Hero's Demise and another spell in his hand.
Yeah, I saw a Lifebane zombie, I think, so...
No, it's...
sorry, it's another Blood Baron.
Blood Baron, yep.
Good call.
Blood Baron armies.
Well, we find the land, and we do, in fact, Verdict. He declines to Rev for 2, just chooses to keep going at the top of the deck. Bold move, pays off.
It does, and now he's going to scatter the next Blood Baron.
Alright, well...
Haha! Tricked ya! I baited you with my Blood Baron. Now my Soldier of Pantheon is going to take you down.
Yep. Jesse indeed lacks an answer to the Soldier, but draws one right off the top. I think that is a Glare of Heresy.
It looked like
not to use it.
Gonna Sphinx's Revelation this turn.
Yep.
For 3, Josh Ravitz still drawing lands.
Jesse goes to 11. Already has an answer in hand to the Soldier of the Pantheon.
Ooh, that was a good Revelation too. Another Revelation, a Quicken, and a 7th land.
Draws, in fact, an 8th land off of his draw step.
So you can go Gilgate Glare this turn, Revelation for 5 next turn.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's going to go with. Oh, declines. Looks like he's willing to milk for a little more value. He has Quicken Verdict. Maybe he's hoping to take 2 and get another creature. I don't know. Josh is pretty patient, though. It doesn't seem like he's going to just run another guy out there. Mutavault. That might force a change in Josh's plans.
Yes.
Oh, he does also have his Quicken Glare of Heresy combo assembled. Perhaps that's his master plan.
Wow, and Ravitz does have an Obsidat.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Oh, and this is not how Joshua wants it to go down.
Oh, man. I hate to say that, I saw this coming, but...
End step, Jesse quickening, draws a card, and he's going to give Obsidat a real rude look. Just the rudest of looks. He actually draws an Essence Scatter in response. He didn't even need this cuteness, but he has access to it.
Well, now he has the Scatter for the next Obsidat.
Yeah. It looks like did he equip in?
Yep,
okay.
Stink Eye.
Does, in fact, get rid of it. Not the exile Josh was hoping for there.
No.
Jesse just sitting on that Verdict. Josh draws another Obsidat. We already know that Jesse has the Essence Scatter at the ready to handle this one.
Jesse willing to take another hit. This has got to get scattered.
Jesse's patience against these soldiers is actually really impressive. And, it makes a lot of sense, too. Obviously, the Black-White deck has very little reach. It has basically Obsidat's trigger, right?
Yeah. Yep, and for his troubles, he's gotten an extra, 3 on the X of Sphinx's Revelation?
Yeah. Which pays back half the life lost anyway.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
Jesse holding on to a Detention Sphere, which is important because Whip of Erebos can now return back that Obsidat that he slew with the Essence Scatter, and Detention Sphere can actually answer before Josh untaps. He's a little land shy on being able to go immediately whip back an Obsidat.
Right. Man, is that interaction awesome.
Yeah. So Jesse fills up for 7 cards, it looks like, effectively gaining 3 life against Josh's attack.
Josh actually remembered to gain a life off of the Soldier of Pantheon, which is cute, going up to 30. Cute. Triggered his Precinct Captain as well.
Josh.
I want to use my soldier.
My soldiers. Paid good money for these two. Supreme Verdict clears them up anyway. And Jesse in a pretty commanding position with a full hand against Josh's Hero's Downfall.
Yeah. Game went just about according to plan for Jesse. Not too much pressure early. Rev for 3. And then a big rev later on.
Jace boosting rather than drawing, and I actually like that because I think it gives him a way to boost towards a win condition, especially if it was his only Aetherling. As he knows, if Josh is playing Paul Rietzel's decklist, he knows there are 3 Obsidats. The last one's in there.
Yes.
He can go ahead and snag it. But he does lose it to the Hero's Downfall Josh has been rolling on all game.
And Divination. Get deeper. Hand full of goodies for Jesse, just a matter of closing it out.
Yep.
And he's going to do it 2 at a time, it looks like, down from 31.
Yeah, that's a tough road to hoe for sure.
Yeah.
Discards Detention Sphere, has another one in his hand. Still has some lands and a counterspell in Dissolve. Sin Collector, awkward for Jesse. It's not a powerful enough card to make him want to counter it, but he basically has to because it trades with a counterspell.
Because it would have
anyway.
taken, yeah. Might as well scry, Only have a certain few cards that matter at this point.
Yeah, Jesse really just trying to get in as much as he can, as fast as he can.
So fast he's throwing lands on the ground.
Yeah. Doesn't need, has plenty.
Another attack for 2. Joshua untaps, draws a soldier, excuse me.
Yeah, we see Jesse does have another Last Breath in his hand.
And Revelation.
Sphinx's Revelation is good, although, how much it can actually dig him into here. He's got mostly what he needs. If he doesn't have another Aetherling in his deck, it's actually kind of a real possibility that he could get too low in deck to actually kill Josh.
Yep, that is definitely true. You're going to have to be a little careful of that. And we see he is counting his library.
Yep, Jesse aware of all the angles. God, these guys and their glasses.
He's too smart.
Looks like he's going to rev for the full-blowns.
All right.
That indicates to me that he does have the other Aetherling.
Yes.
Otherwise, I don't think he could probably afford this many.
What was that, a 10 ball? Up to 14?
Looks like... Yep.
This is pretty good. We've reached that point where your hand is as big as your library.
Yeah. Jesse keeping up a quick pace, intent on closing this out.
Yep, he knows it still might take a few turns if he's going to have to use a Jace ultimate.
Didn't find an Aetherling, does have plenty of removal, and he does have a Jace, and yeah, as you said, he may need that ultimate to actually get there. So he glares the soldier down. Plays Jace, pluses. Does appear to be going for that ultimate, sends in the Mutavault.
All right. Tick-tock from a couple different angles. Not the fastest of clocks, but...
Yeah, he has Dissolve if Josh has another relevant spell, and then once he untaps all those lands, his Syncopate will actually be live again.
Yep. The old late-game Syncopate.
Syncopate for X equals 10? You have an extra 10.
I only have 9.
I only have 9. No.
Shucks.
Josh does draw Hero's Down... Oh, no, that's Aretha Ones. My bad. Thought it was a Hero's Downfall, which merits an equal Dissolve. Oh. Does have a Hero's Downfall. Jesse can only Syncopate for 2, which is exactly what Josh has up. Man, this one it might just come down to the wire. Oh, he does have a second Aetherling. Never mind.
Look at that.
This one is functionally over.
It was about to get interesting, and then an Aetherling happened.
Nope, our answers about Jesse's sideboarding tactics have all of our questions have been answered basically.
Yes.
We boarded in like two Last Breath, 2 Glare, brought in the second Aetherling, and it's going to close out this game from here.
24 is also quite a convenient number.
Yeah, that is, I believe, 3 Aetherling swings, but he can actually get a little cheaper with the Mutavault. It's effectively the same cost, but he can get a little more damage. Josh saying, yeah, hurry it up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything. I'm clearly dead. Let's just get it over with.
F6.
Dissolve and Syncopate together will basically lock it up. Jesse probably tempted to reveal here. Yeah, he's like, whatever.
Sure enough, takes the dissolve.
Yeah.
All right.
Jesse's just going to go ahead and play with it face up, speed things along.
Yep. Time concerns. Unblockability.
Goes in and animates the Mutavault as well, sends both. Ravitz appears to be considering a block. Yep, goes with it.
Just put the Sin Collector on top.
Yeah, I think that's what Jesse's plan was. I assume when he resolved, that was what his plan was going to be. Just make Josh do this until the end of the game, which is not really going to do much.
Yeah. Yep, Jesse just making sure that, you know, he's got all his bases covered. Doesn't want to miss something obvious.
He's going to pump, and then he looks like he's going to allow the trade.
All right. Interesting.
I'll grant you that getting Sin collected every turn until the end of the game is a little annoying, but when the end of the game is 8th Wing attacking for lethal,
The next turn.
it seems fine.
Yeah. And there's the hand. So, as they say, and it still holds true post-rotation, the first Sphinx's Revelation stabilizes, the second one wins.